All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa Gasaway. I'm the chair of the Montalvo Area Community Council. And tonight we are lucky to have Maruja Clensay from the Community Development Office in the city of Ventura. And they have launched a land use survey, and they really would like to have feedback before October 21st. I believe it closes on October 21st.
That's correct.
And um, so Maruja is going to be here to help us navigate the survey, and if we have any questions, and you'll give us more information on what the survey's about. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yes. And I
All
can share
right.
a PowerPoint if we're ready.
Sure. Let's get
All
started.
right, let's get started. All right. The famous line, can everybody see my screen? Oh,
Yep.
good. Okay. Thank you so much for being here and for having this special meeting for us to talk about this general plan land use survey that we just launched mid-September, closing again on October 21st. This is a second casting of the net, if you will, after there was a prior land use map that was issued in fall of last year. And we got some more feedback indicating that, there's some stuff that might be a little inconsistent or just not right. So in a true Goldilocks fashion, we really wanted to get it just right. So we did cast it out again, got a survey sent out a survey in spring. This is the result of that survey, and we're wanting to do it again to make sure that we really captured everything. So that's the intent behind this exercise. So as I just mentioned, we got feedback in April and May of this past year on this map that we had issued after hearing that we were, just needing to get a little more insight from local experts, you guys, about, certain parcels and properties and communities that you feel, need to be relooked at in the sense of our general plan update. So we got about 200 public comments, and we read each and every one. We actually responded to each and every one, and I'll show you where you can find those responses on our general plan website. Most of the comments are pertaining to inconsistencies with zoning, which kind of goes above the general plan land use designation, and how it exists in our 1989 comprehensive plan, which is it's an older general plan that's just in our coastal zone, because our 2005 general plan wasn't certified by the Coastal Commission. So that older document applies in that area. It's a little wonky. There's a lot of plans going on here, but we wanted to bring those to the surface and address those inconsistencies. There was also expressed concern about current industrial designated properties and trying to maintain those to the best that we can. And then, of course, some granular detailed requests about specific parcels that may be in proximity to transit or location to other infrastructure maybe needed another look at. So that led to a rethinking of various land use designations and the map. And you'll see this QR code on every slide, and that QR code will take you to the survey that I'm talking about. So as a result of this last round, we have updated to 34 designations. So we added 3 more different general plan designations, and these really closely align with our existing zoning designations. There are 16 designations that have remained unchanged, and those are right there on your screen. Sorry if you hear my furry children in the background, they're getting their evening zoomies, so apologies for that. This is our project website, planventura.com/updated land use map. And this is where you're going to find the most relevant and current information pertaining to this effort. And there's a lot of material here. So if you have insomnia, it's a great start. Or if you just want to really dive in and get interested in it, there's a lot of technical data, including our first, which is our technical background memo. This talks about the changes that we've made, how those are reflected on the designation map. And we ask you to read that document first before diving into the survey. Then, of course, we have a separate document that is a more substantial narrative about each of these land use designations. Then we have the map. that reflects those designations. This link in particular brings you to one large downloadable high-res PDF that you can print. We have previous reference maps, including the fall 2023 first land use map that we got feedback on in spring, as well as our 2005 general plan map. So with that, there is also an interactive GIS map involving our land use map that you can play with, zoom in and out, and take a look at individual parcels. And we also have this really cool feature called Story Map that I'll walk you through. And it's a really cool virtual tool that you can scroll through, and different layers of the maps and designations pop up as it pertains to a corresponding narrative. So it's a real nice illustrative story, inherent in the name, of how we got here and what has changed. And then there is that response to all those 200 comments we received, how we've addressed them, if they have led to a specific change, or if that question will be taken back to council, or how we addressed it generally speaking, if it was more of a global ask. And then with that, you can see further on in that statement is a new addition of an interactive web map. We went to GPAC last month and we heard, hey, it would be great if we could actually correlate some of these comments to where they are on the map. So the team heard that, quickly turned around this ability to cross-reference certain comments that are pertaining to a specific parcel back into the map. So we did make that connection to make it fully comprehensive when looking at those comments. And also there is, of course, the online feedback form. And this is where we are going to garner your feedback on the survey through a series of like interactive, mapping things, which I'll just show you in a little bit. So this is what the survey will look like when you click on the online feedback form. It will take you to 8 different areas of our community that you can zoom into and drop a pin like you do in Google or Google Maps to highlight a specific comment on a parcel. You can also delete them. Oops, sorry, pardon that. You can also delete if for some reason you make a mistake right here, but you can basically drop them anywhere an unlimited number of times to write comments. Again, we divided them into 8 different sections. So they go into different areas of the city. And again, this survey is open till October 21st. This is the story map feature. It's actually a video that I did. So I'm just going to press play. And what I'm doing here is I'm just scrolling, I guess technically up, even though it's going down. I always have a hard time describing that. But it shows you our updated land use map. And then this is the previous map from the fall. And you can see that those layers pop up with the corresponding legend. This is the 2005 general plan map again, corresponding legend, so you can kind of see these are the parcels that have the same designation that haven't changed since 2005. These are parcels that have new designations or slightly tweaked designations. So it walks you through basically where we've done stuff with the industry. We've added the 1989 comprehensive plan as a layer. That was feedback we received during our office hours regarding this map survey. So we have been able to tailor in real time to address feedback that we received, which has been a really nice feature that we've been able to do. So our next steps after the closing of the survey, we have a forthcoming GPAC or our General Plan Advisory Committee meetings. I know CARBA is in the virtual room and they have been very active in our correspondence and communications in that. Our next meeting is November 18th, where we'll dive into the surveys and probably get into December 2nd with that. After that, we're looking at February for our next GPAC meeting, because between December and February, we anticipate the release of our public draft general plan and then our public draft environmental impact report that accompanies the general plan. And that is the environmental analysis that will accompany that document. So the general plan is comprised of 12 different chapters. They're called elements, everything from land use, environmental justice, public facilities, arts and culture, and the like. And so the GPAC has dove into each of these areas over the past 4 years, which is a really testament to community dedication and involvement. And so this is, the look of that comprehensive huge chapter book, if you will. Now, each the general plan draft release and the environmental document will have its own public comment period, and a substantial one. I think with it's 60 days for the environmental or 45 for the doc, if not maybe 60 for both. But we really want to make sure that we get it right. We have to get it right. This is our document for the next 20 years. And so we will have ample community engagement within that time frame, and then hopefully begin the adoption hearings with council and our planning commission in spring and into summer. And what we're thinking of is doing like 2 elements per hearing with planning commission and then with city council to really dive into each of these. And there'll be, 6 subsequent series, if you will, of that over time. So we may have some special meetings, heads up, Commissioner Abby, regarding that. So, but we really want to give ample opportunity for not only our decision makers, but the public to participate over these next, this next 9 months to maybe the next year from this time. Although we're hopeful to have adoption by summer. This is also something I wanted to take advantage in sharing with you. As part of our housing element, which is one of those chapters in the general plan I mentioned, but actually it's certified separately from the general plan by Department of Housing and Community Development in the state. We are looking to explore and receive feedback on housing rights and potential tenant protections. So council asked us to get some feedback and some workshops going to solicit this input from both property owners, tenants, and property managers about what's out there from, state law, local law, what are resources for both tenant and property owners to navigate all the various legislation from the state and locally, and then bring that feedback back to our council to see if there's anything they want to consider implementing additional on the local level. So we have 2 in person and 2 virtual. 1 in person will be in English, 1 in person will be in Spanish, 1 virtual in English, 1 virtual in Spanish, and we will have cross translation for each of those meetings. So if you attend the Spanish speaking one, you'll be able to hear it in English and vice versa. So you can email lrollins@cityofventura.ca.gov to register or to get more information about this series, and you'll be seeing a lot more media releases pertaining to these workshops in the coming weeks. So that completes my presentation. You can email planventura@cityofventura.ca.gov for general queries or other information, and I'll drop my email and direct line in there too. If you want to follow up about any specific questions or concerns, I am made available to you. I do monitor the Plan Ventura email as well as a couple others. So just really hoping you all participate and share with your family and friends and neighbors and all everybody that you can, so we can make sure we really get as much participation. So thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. So does anyone have any questions for Maruja?
I definitely do.
Okay.
John gave a thumbs up, but I would love to ask a question if I can. Is that okay, Lisa?
Yeah, please.
Yes. Okay. So we've been following this process for a long time, and just for the sake of the recording for our members, and then also just for my own clarification, do I understand correctly that you are from the planning department, so you are a city employee?
Correct.
And then CARBA participates in the General Plan Advisory Committee.
Correct.
And there's also a planning commission, which Mark Abbey is a commissioner on. Are those the 3 entities that are involved in creating the general plan? Oh, and then city council.
And city council, yes.
Okay.
Those are all so the GPAC has been our, I think, 22 member full advisory group from the start of the process to the very end, that consists of a variety of neighbors, viewpoints, constituents, to try and capture all varying viewpoints of the community, right? And they have been involved on an intimate level. I know Carba could probably speak to this in better detail than I can, with its progression and how we've gotten here today. And I know it was I've heard someone say it was a 2-year commitment that's become a 4-year sentence, but COVID created a long pause and everything. It kind of threw the whole thing around. So I think everybody that's entering this process with that factor, it's been pushed out a long time. But ultimately, the general plan will have to be reviewed by the planning, recommended by the GPAC, reviewed by the planning commission, and then they will recommend approval of the general plan to the city council. So there is a bit of a hierarchy within that approval process, but each one will get a bite of the apple, if you will. DRC doesn't, their design review committee or our historic preservation committee typically doesn't get involved in general plan products. They can, of course, participate as citizens and interested members, but there isn't really any design elements that merit the design review committee's review. We will have a historic element that will get feedback from the HPC as we launch our citywide survey. So that feedback will be critical, but they're not necessarily decision makers on the project itself, the general plan.
Okay, and then also just in my experience of the last several years, do I understand correctly that so far the general plan, the GPAC, the advisory committee made recommendations, and then it went to planning commission, and in some cases they made different recommendations that were in conflict. And then your job as the city was to try to blend those recommendations into the best hybrid recommendation possible to go before city council. Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. And then really the only entity that actually has any power is city council.
They ultimately have to approve the final general plan. Yes.
Right.
But
So
the planning commission, go ahead. Go ahead.
Is the idea that your department is really just a middleman, so to speak? Not to say that as a negative term.
No,
but
not at all. Yeah.
You take the recommendations. Does your department also make a third recommendation that could be in conflict with the GPAC or the planning commission?
So what we do as staff is we're working with a consultant, Matt Ramey and Associates, that these environmental firms, that this is what they do, right? They produce these large documents. They're aware of state laws. They know the requirements that they need to produce it. So they're on contract with the city, but we tell them what they need to do. So we are the intermediary or the middleman or middle person in regards to that conduit, right? We're hearing this from the community. We're hearing this from our decision makers. Here are Matt Ramey and Associates. This is the direction that we want to go in arts and culture. This is the direction that we're leaning within land use. And they make those basically changes to writing this document to echo that feedback. So we are a bit of a sheep herder in the sense of gathering all the tidbits, all the information, trying to funnel them into something tangible that can work within the context of the general plan. Matt Ramey and his team then write that narrative that ultimately reflects what all of that community feedback from the GPAC, from public workshops, from these surveys, all into one to hopefully, as general as we can, speak to all these varying interests in a way that hopefully crosses all the T's and dots all the I's. And then as staff, we package that up with the help of Matt Ramey's team to present as representatives of the city, of staff, to say, this is how we can use this locally within our city. This is how eventually we will take this general plan document once adopted and change our local zoning codes that we will take ownership of, that we will actually apply day to day to projects, to development, to streetscapes, to how we look at our cultural and art facilities. So we have a stake and input in it as it pertains to, we are going to have to apply this in a future setting when we process future development. But there also are guiding things that Ventura Water's looking at as it pertains to their facilities, Public Works to look at their facilities. So everybody hangs their hat on some element within the city government on this general plan, which is why planning is the lead, because it is the foundation of how development is. But Ventura Water, Public Works, Transportation, Parks and Rec, Fire, Police, everybody is we're nagging them to review at exhaustion, to be like, hey, we're living with this document. It touches everybody. But so we're, effectively are the middleman and trying to make sure we're hitting everybody's objectives internally in the city from a department and a function of government perspective, as well as meeting the intent and sentiment and vision of the community.
And
So
so
it's a big push.
Ramey and Associates, they basically say, we don't have a dog in this fight. We don't have an opinion. We are just taking the input from you and turning that into a document.
That's correct. And I think that, you know, again, this is, I think, my 8th week back at the city, which is interesting. Is when I was a planner at the city, I was at the very beginning, and then I left to join Matt's team, and then I'm back and I'm at the very end. And from what I'm gathering, there has been a little bit of an undercurrent narrative of, oh, this is Matt's plan, Matt Ramey's plan. And really Rachel, the community development director, and I are really trying to flip that narrative. Like, no, he's just doing what we're informing him to do. You know, in the end, this is his project, and when that project's done, he'll have another project elsewhere in the state. It really is our plan, which is why we wanted to do another survey. We wanted to make sure we got it right and do all this outreach and really take our time, even though I know it's been a long time, to make sure that it's a document that all the city can get behind, and take our local ownership of it. So yeah, you know, ultimately he's our consultant. We're paying him to write it, but it's our product that we will own and manage and maintain moving forward. And while, you know, it is supposed to be a foundational document and static in itself, it also can be ever changing. You know, it can grow and flex with the community, just like zoning codes do. You know, I think people are afraid to touch code because they feel it's memorialized in stone, but you know, it is supposed to flex. It isn't a static document. And so while the general plan does guide where we go, there are certain things like general plan amendments. Like there are paths forward to bend. If in 5-10 years we're moving a different direction, we can move in that direction. You know, it's the city's document. And I think that we all need to just keep that narrative at the top of the, you know, at the top of the surface. It's our document. Matt's writing it for us, but we're peer reviewing it. We're amending the text ourselves. We're commenting on it, you know, and we're changing, you know, a good part of it too, to make sure that it truly echoes what the community is saying to us and what our city departments need too.
Okay, I hate to be a ball hog. Does anybody else have a question? Because I have another one. Okay, go ahead.
Lisa, is it okay if I go?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I wanted to ask Maruja. Oh, actually, I want to make a couple of comments. And one of the things that came up after the first survey was that, oh my goodness, a lot of areas that weren't areas of discussion were changed, particularly in terms of residential.
Mm-hmm.
And I've reviewed for myself what happened. I went to the general GPAC meeting, and I was so pleasantly pleased with what the Community Development Department and GPAC team did in regards to the current residential land use, not including mixed use 3, 4, 5, and 6, but you know, the R1, R2, R3, all those different designations. So I know in the survey, and so anyone who's watching this can go in on the survey materials and find what there's one diagram that's really good that shows we used to have 3 residential land use. We had neighborhood low, 0 to 8 dwelling units per acre, neighborhood medium, 9 to 20 dwelling units per acre, neighborhood high, 21 to 54 dwelling units per acre. And at the first survey, the team was trying to do the best they could with what they had, but found out after the survey there was a lot of people saying, oh my gosh, you intensified our residential. So you've gone back, community development and the GPAC team, and you've fine-tuned it. You looked at the underlying zoning and you said, okay, we've got X number of zoning, and you changed essentially what were more than 11 zoning types of residential. And you said, we don't want to have unexpected consequences, so we'll just turn those zonings into land uses. So we went from 3 residential land uses to 11.
Mhm.
And there's narrower bands. There's more predictability.
Exactly.
It fits what's on the ground with the city as far as residential neighborhoods. So I want to strongly commend planning and the community development department for doing such a good job with that. And those results show up on this in the form of this new land use map.
Well,
So-
thank you. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So one of the things that I noticed as far as the Montalvo Area Community Council, we had asked for certain things as a community council and working with our community quite extensively. And so I'm noticing that a lot of the mixed use 3 that we ask for is on the map. So on lower Victoria on the east side of the street below Moon Drive. There's some business below Seahawk above Ventura Boulevard, so forth. A lot of designations that our community council worked very hard on to make sure that we weren't getting buildings that were too large for the neighborhood. And the city council actually responded and said, okay, yes, we're willing to go along with mixed use 3. Now, we know that's not cast in stone, cast in cement. There might be another review and they might look at individual parcels. But as a community council, we were saying, you've dumped almost 2,000 dwelling units on Johnson Drive. And we want to be part of the housing solution in town, but we don't want to be the only solution. There, there's District 5, there's District 6, there's District 2, there's District 3. Not everything needs to be dumped into District 6 and into District 1. And so I think as a community council, we were able to make that argument. But I'm concerned with 2 things. One is I heard of the GPAC that whatever designation we come up with the inclusionary housing plan and state density bonuses, even if we think what we're getting is mixed use 3-story, 45 feet, that's not necessarily the end result. Could you tell our community why that would not necessarily be the end of the story on mixed use 3?
So the state density bonus law, or SB 330, does allow what's called concessions or waivers as it pertains to either the amount of units you can have on the site, which then can affect restrictions such as height or lot coverage or parking requirements or other development standards. Now, that is, of course, only if that project is producing or proposing a certain percentage of affordable units within the low or very low income bracket as it compares to the current AMI of the year. And we are seeing some projects come forward with that for, larger sites where there is an allowance of height. And so by throwing in a certain percentage of low to very low income units, they do get some more allowance as it pertains to height or spatial relation to how much lot coverage they can have. While, definitely the general plan designation guides that, right? It has to be not a substantial departure from the underlining designation. I think it can, as I think I've said the word flex of it, but it does, I guess, fit here. It can flex out a bit based on what the state density bonus allows. But there are other regulations that come with that, such as affordability covenants. And, for 45 to 55 years, it's not a type of project that is easily made available to just an everyday property owner. It has to be an experienced land developer that has a partnership with a another nonprofit or other group that could assist with the management of those units, because they do require those covenants, the oversight, yearly reporting, sometimes wraparound services, depending on the type of housing project it is. So it's not so much of like any property anywhere can, because there is a lot of requirements to do that, but it is a real situation, and we are seeing projects that have state density bonus that's affecting, or that can flex out of those standards, right? And I wouldn't say, again, so much of a departure from that, but definitely a little bulb out. But those projects are still subject to discretionary review. They're still subject to, potential design review, a level of discretionary authority or approval from the director or the planning commission, depending on where and how many units it is. So we lean on that discretion, if you will, to help guide or, in a way, contain that flex of those standards to help meet what the intent is behind the community and what fits in with the context surrounding that site, while also acknowledging the legal elements involved with density bonus law.
Okay, I have a couple more questions, but I think I've taken up too much time at this point, so I'm gonna let other people ask some questions.
Anybody else have questions? I do. And we can come back around to Cassie and Mark if we still have time. I think we were planning to go until 8 p.m. Does that work with you, Maruja?
Oh yeah, and if you want to stay longer, that's cool too.
Okay,
I mean, no, it's fine. You guys made the time for me. I'll totally make the time for any questions you have. It's all good.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so two things, I guess. First, I did look at the survey, and mostly everything in our area that we fought for with our community and for our community was there, as it hadn't changed.
Good. But it hadn't changed in your feedback?
No, it was
Oh.
it was the way that we wanted it to
Oh,
be.
good.
Right? It was the
Okay.
way that the community wanted it to be.
Okay, good.
Right. So I didn't like take it any further. At this point, I wanted to wait until this meeting. So what I want to know is, if we look at it and we say everything's great, and we complete the survey, or we look at it and we say everything's great and we really don't need to do anything. But then some folks come in and say, all of these things that we fought for over here on Johnson Drive and on Ventura Boulevard and Victoria and and Moon Drive, right? If they say, oh no, I want 6 stories there and I want blah, 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 are you going to take this as the community is speaking to us and they want 6 stories because the folks who have already fought for this, one, basically, through the Planning Commission, the Community Council, through GPAC, everything, we came up with an agreement that we were happy with, right? So, are we going to have to fight for this again?
I wouldn't. That's a great question. I don't think that council will be swayed by a few outlier comments on one particular parcel, acknowledging that they have seen the process, been with the process. I know that council member Duran has been engaged and has, heard your guys' feedback, the Montalvo community's feedback, hence reflected in the map. I think a way to give maybe peace of mind, and I would suggest this to all the community councils. In fact, I may just reach out organically to each of them by way of this question is, write a letter of support of the general plan, or, acknowledge the elements of the general plan that you agree with and you would like to not see altered by way of public feedback. That just what Lisa and Mark had echoed, like, we asked for this and it happened, and thank you so much. And of course, if there's other elements of the general plan or components within the general plan that you have concern with, express it by all means. But I think that would be a way just to help say, hey, we're good here. If there's any road comments now in the 11th hour, please know how long it took us to get here. We trusted the process. That's why we're here. That's why we're continuing to engage. I know one site that has kind of come up again in recent conversations within the context of the survey is the triangle site that's close to the Metrolink site. I think that is, I'm pretty sure that's Montalvo in 6.
Yeah.
There's a individual, I think the property owner, if not others, want to see that mixed use 4, or they want to up the mixed use designation, and I can't recall what number. I think right now it's split between like a flex industrial and mix 3. Sorry.
There's two irregular shaped parcels. The western parcel is currently designated on the survey map, this most recent survey map, as mixed use 3. And the rightmost parcel there is designated light industrial 3 flex. And that eastern parcel, there was a big showing at Planning Commission and especially City Council of the commercial people, including, what's the name of that steak place on Ventura Boulevard?
Bodacious barbecue.
Bodacious Barbecue.
Oh, Marshall's, yeah.
Marshall's Bodacious Barbecue,
Yeah.
and all of the auto serving businesses that surround it. They showed up in mass at City Council and said, we want to keep our businesses. We don't want to. And the city's council was responsive to that. So, which of those two parcels south of the railroad, right next to at the train station, are they talking about? Are they talking about
I think
the
if you
western?
go for
You got to
Sorry,
drag the map
further
up a little
south,
more. Who's
Cassie.
controlling? Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah, there's Victoria, so keep going.
this one right there, right where you're stop.
Perfect.
It's
Yep.
like the lavender, yeah, the lavender and the gray. What
there's
is that?
There's a light gray right to the west of the railroad Y.
Yeah, I think.
That's the light industrial 3/flex.
Yeah.
And
can we see what is that light lavender? I know it's a bummer that the legend can't pull up.
Pretty sure it's mixed use 3.
I think she wants mixed use 4.
Yeah,
on
so
that
that's
portion.
on Dyer Sheehan, so they're back.
But she made it sound like it was just on that parcel most or closest to the Metrolink. I don't think she was talking
Right.
about that space closer to Bodacious Barbecue, so the western portion. And her pitch was it's close to the Metrolink, can provide housing there, to that. But I didn't hear her talk about the industrial parcel at all. She was talking just about the mixed use parcel.
Mm-hmm. And she wants it to be mixed use 4.
4. I was looking back at my notes, but I think I wrote them on a different pad of paper from that meeting.
Okay, so that's exactly what my question is, because the community showed up at meetings, the planning commission voted on it, the city council voted on it. Why is it even up for discussion again?
Yeah, and I think in the sense of, wanting to get all these, additional feedback on these parcels. And in the end, we present all the data and the findings and the feedback on, let's say that parcel comes up a few different times. That will be something that staff, us, will elevate to city council and be like, hey, we got to this point here. This is additional feedback we received at the survey. Here, you educated decision makers, it is up to you now to decide if you want to relook at it. So
Okay.
what we do as regulators and facilitators is we garner all that data and give it to them. There were, and I think the answer to the question of like, why are we kind of like undoing it again is more or less just wanting to make sure that we're really doing our due diligence and making sure we do everything right. And if there is still a resounding, no to mixed use or other, right, or other project or site within the city, if there's, that's still resounding request, I would hope that city council would heed to that. But we're not going to be, we're going to be as equally as transparent as we were with the prior survey, list all the comments. And if we're noticing this push and pull with a specific area or parcel, we will flag that as we have previously, to bring it up on that granular perspective with our decision makers and say, all right, what say you? Appointed, elected individuals, how would you like to proceed? And then ultimately it's, their decision.
Okay. So Cassie, I guess my second question is if we just have a minute or 5 or 3 to if you can pull that back up again. And if anyone sees any areas that are questions, I mean, like I said, I looked through it kind of quickly. But and the board, obviously, we're going to need to probably meet about this before the 21st so we can.
Is the concern involving this particular 2 properties? I mean, it sounds like the industrial on the right, the gray was well received by the neighboring businesses. Am I
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
Is the mixed use 3 to 4 of concern because of the potential increased density or height or number
Can
of
we
units?
clarify that mixed use 4 with the density bonus, and when they start claiming transit-oriented development and low-income opportunities, that it could easily get to 6. That is a property
see.
that would be right for 6 stories, correct?
I mean, it would depend on the makeup of the project and how many units and what the density was and the allowed height. I don't have that information in front of
Well,
me,
it
but
potentially could, if for what you were just saying earlier, Maruja, was there's the state density
there's a
bonus.
potential, yes, to
There's potential.
have an allowance of additional
And
height, but where that
so-
is in relation to how much height, it's very subjective at the point of like, well, what's before, how much height are they proposing? How many units are they proposing?
parking is also a concern.
Okay.
Because people say, well, it's right by the Metro link. We've been told that they're not going to increase trains there.
Okay.
And so there's 3 trains out and 3 trains back.
And they're going to
right?
reduce the 3 out to LA down to 2 starting in October, my daughter told me.
Oh, okay.
So, and your daughter is a
rider.
rider. So
Rider
she's
to
probably
Channel Islands, yeah,
our best
university.
I am
person.
too. I thought they just changed the times. There's
Oh,
3 in the morning and 3 in the evening. They just changed the times to be earlier, so you can get there at 5:30, 6:30, or 6:30, 7:30, or 8:30.
They're eliminating the 6:59 train out, and it's going to start in Moore Park instead of Ventura. So it's not as convenient. So the point being is that there is hardly enough ridership now to designate that as a high. What is that designation, Maruja? Where
transit, what is it?
Transit-oriented.
high density transit
high quality
corridor?
transit corridor?
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
think that this would qualify as that because it certainly isn't that now, and there's no plans within the next 5 to 10 years to add service at that train station. So does the city view that area as high quality transit?
We're still working on our to SCAG our analysis of high quality transit corridors. We're actually working on research right now to confirm within the city jurisdictions what is considered a high quality transit corridor. Because I understand prior to my return, there was some high level discussions about that at city council. So I don't know is the answer whether or not this Metrolink would be considered one pertaining under that
Yeah.
definition. But I think, you know, back to kind of the nexus for this survey is to, again, you know, garner your feedback on it and drop a pin there and express your concern with wanting to maintain this as mixed use 3 based on existing, you know, bulk and scale of the surrounding context, to consider, as mentioned, you know, the potential for state density bonus, and acknowledging that may eventually go more than 3 depending on what that project includes, entails, and proposes. I mean, there, you know, there's a variety of different ways that pie can be sliced. 100% affordable versus 15% affordable can have a different menu of waivers and concessions depending on what state law or housing law or density bonus the project's applying for.
Can I ask a very quick question about the survey and
Yeah.
how to handle it? So Lisa had mentioned, Cassie may have too, but in her question, so last time we took the survey, we were looking at things that didn't look good for our neighborhood.
Okay.
So we put in comments and talk to our neighbors and talk to our community. And so the comments stem from that. Would it behoove us, would it be a good idea for our community if there are land uses that we like? For example, in addition to the mixed use 3 along Ventura Boulevard and so forth, there was the Bristol Center, and the community development team, GPAC team, responded and said, no, mixed use 6 does not seem appropriate given the neighborhood. We are going to classify that down to mixed use 3, which was a very good thing to see. So my question is, on those types of specific parcels where it was like, we really like how it currently is, can we make positive comments, or do they just have to be negative?
Positive comments. No.
Can we make
please put positive comments?
Can we make them parcel specific and say we are very happy on this these parcels?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, Mark, no one calls you to tell you you're doing a good job, right? So for someone to make the effort to actually say, you guys got this right, I think hits equal weight with, you guys got this wrong. So I would implore you to please, when we got it right, please tell us we got it right, because that's also gonna, you know, go toe to toe with any comments that say otherwise. So I encourage, and I know your time is valuable, but I do think we need to know where we got it right, because if we're just looking at what we did wrong or what's not hitting the mark, we can only infer that everything outside of that is good, right? But when we have validation that it actually hit the mark, yes, please. And it makes us feel good to read something positive.
So just
yes, please, yeah, Mark, take it all up. Every parcel, ding, 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 ding. Happy face, happy face, happy face, happy face.
Very good.
For our members that are watching this recording, what you see on the screen now is the survey with these red pins that we've dropped. And so we're talking about, this is the one that is right next to the Metrolink station, and it's currently set for 3 stories, mixed use 3, so it could have shops or apartments in it up to 3 stories, possibly more if there's bonuses. And you would write in here, I like it at 3 stories. I think that's a good height. Or I think we should increase density here because we need more people on the train. Whatever your opinion is, you would write it in there. And the other parcel that we're discussing is, this is the 7-Eleven here. But you can look all around District 6 and comment on anything. And another question I had was, I see all this yellow.
Yes.
And so that's now called neighborhood very low 2. Is that right?
Correct.
So it used to be R1, or are those different things?
It used to be neighborhood
Low.
All of the yellows used to be neighborhood low. And what we've done is we bifurcated them to 7 different ones, so that it's like 0 to 2 acres, and I'm not speaking verbatim, but it's broken up that slice of that pie of, I think it's 0 to 7. Mark, is that correct? I think you just said it earlier to, or 0 to 9.
It used to be
low.
0 to 8
0 to 8.
yeah.
So we've divided like 0 to, I think it's 0 to 2, and then 2 to 3.5, and then 3.5 to 5. So it's sliced up that general, hey, 1 to 8 on all these different parcels into looking at these smaller segments to help really slow that density out based on its adjacency to other higher denser properties or zones or amenities.
So the only thing that's hard is like this yellow is
Yeah.
different from this yellow.
Yeah.
And like
know.
you said, when I click it, it doesn't tell me what it is. So I have to go back to the,
It is that we try to work around that because we wanted to have the floating legend like by you while you are navigating.
Yeah.
But within this platform called Zen City, which is what we had to work with, we couldn't do that. So what I've been recommending is open up the static map in like a second window and like shrink it down, so it just fits on the side and kind of adjust so you can have that shrink it down towards just the legend, right? And then fit it on your screen, or if you have a second screen set up on your desktop or even on your phone, and you can kind of correlate in real time as you're navigating. That to me seems to be the easiest way. You can also, like, Windows has this cool thing where you do like control window and it will shift one screen to one side and the other one to the other side evenly. So you're not having to like play with these boxes all over the place. So you can have them literally side by side and you can have that static legend on the right while you're navigating on the left with the actual survey. That's
So
what I would recommend.
this was an early discussion in our neighborhood and actually at the beginning in the formation of the Montalvo Community Council, which is now Montalvo Area Community Council. They were upzoning us, remember, Mark? They were taking our R1 and trying to upzone us because our lots are bigger, and so they're a great place for developers to put in multi-units and this kind of thing. And so I'm happy to see all the yellow protecting the low density in the neighborhood. But I had heard something about the state was going to take away. Does that sound familiar to you, that neighborhood very low was being challenged?
I think no, not locally. I think there may be some other jurisdictions out some in the LA area, or I read a headline recently. I didn't read the article that talked about how a municipality had done away with single family zoning, like the lowest density. I don't know if that's being challenged or not. We're not proposing to do that. Especially as evidenced by the way that we've maintained now like 6 or 7 different designations to accommodate single family residences. I think what we're trying to do is just break it up to have the potential quadplexes, duplexes, triplexes, more opportunity for those types within the single family dwelling to just help with the increased demand for more housing. While not just throwing the bath out with the baby water and doing away with all of it, we need to retain it. And this is a way that we can slice it up in a manner that allows us to, potentially have a couple more units within that framework.
And people who are taking the survey do not have to comment on every area. They can
do
just
not.
They
But
can
I
just
do
skip to the area of interest and comment there.
correct, but I would suggest that they click through all of it. At the end, there's like maybe 5 or 6 questions that effectively is like the survey is complete. We could still garner the information if they stop halfway through, but it does allow us to have a nice metric to then tally, like, hey, out of 20,000 people who finished the survey, we also had 10,000 that started but didn't finish. So we want to be able to articulate, because that way we can have a full picture to share our decision makers on how many people really participated in the data at the end that talks about, do you rent, do you own, Do do you live in the area? Do you not? What's your age group? Just so we can have a better sense of our participation. And, what if we end up having to do this again for some reason, if council wants us to do, we can maybe focus differently with those surveys and those narratives. I'm not wanting to do this again by way of another survey, but I'm just saying that will help us guide how we push the, how the data was pushed, who participated, and that is important to our decision makers.
I will
Okay.
say too that this new platform much more user friendly.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Good.
so much easier to just drop the pin, much simpler. Carba's agreeing with the thumbs up. So
Yay. Thank you,
yeah,
Carba.
it may be because we already did a lot of the hard work with the previous surveys that now it's kind of more distilled. But people who haven't participated before, now's the time. It's a really user friendly platform to be able to just type your little comment in.
Thank you, Cassie, for that feedback. And I know it's not perfect. Like in an ideal world, that legend would float with you. But it was feasible with what we could do within the time we had to make sure we had enough time to get a wide span of comments back. The one thing that I have to say is that and just underscore, I know I said earlier, is that the team has been able to make edits to it in real time. Like with the story map feature, we had office hours like 2 weeks ago, I think, and someone came in and, oh, it'd be great to see the 1989 comprehensive plan map on there. And within 48 hours, it was up there. Hey, it'd be great to have those comments linked to the map within a weekend. By Monday, that was up there. So I really feel everybody on the team, of course, inside City Hall and on the consultant team, are trying to be able to pivot and respond as much as possible to make sure everybody is able to see and hear and participate in all the ways that they can and want to and need to feel that their voice is heard. So I know it's been a long time, and I'm really happy as a citizen and as a planner to be here again, to be working on it, especially in its final stages, because I know how important these documents are, not only to the city, but also to the people that help process stuff in the city. So it's a very important document. I only wish that we could get more participation, because again, no one calls you to tell you you're doing a good job. You usually find out when people are concerned about something or have some unsavory feedback about something else. And this is a great opportunity to really engage and learn and participate and share your concerns that ultimately could be addressed, hopefully. So thank you guys for this great meeting. This has been awesome. Like, definitely, you guys do your homework. I'm very impressed.
Well,
We've been at this for a long time.
Like toes to the mat. I'm like, okay, here we go. Let's do it. Let me put on my math hat with Save That City bonus. Like, no, this is great. Very informative, very engaging. Thank you. Hi, Mark.
Could I ask a question, Lisa?
Sure.
So one of the things that wasn't really answered at GPAC, but and I bring it up, I know this meeting's about the survey and what our residents in District 6 think. This is really important that you guys respond, community, and by October 21st. But oh gosh, I lost my thought.
You said it wasn't about the map, it was about GPAC.
It wasn't answered at GPAC.
Oh yes, thank you. RENA numbers. It was never answered. So watching this whole process go through city council the last time, there had been some GPAC and planning commission had, for example, on the Midtown corridor, said there were places where there was additional density suggested, and the city council ended up saying, nope, we don't want that density going up from 3 stories to 4 stories, mixed use 3 to mixed use 4. There were also a number of shopping centers, including the Barnes and Noble Kohl's shopping center, where there was designated neighborhood center, where 40% of the landmass could be housing, and the remaining 60% of the land could remain commercial. But there were a couple of council members who said, no, we need to leave a lot of those commercial. Let's not go with neighborhood centers. I forget how it ended up at Cole Center. I think that did remain neighborhood center, and so 40% housing could be added. But there were other in District 4 and District 5 that, and maybe even in District 3, where it had been suggested that that be densified and have more housing opportunities. But surprisingly, city council decided, no, we don't want to see that. And so my concern is we go through this whole process and then we don't have enough RENA numbers. And then all of a sudden at the end, we're trying to find places to jam housing after we spent all this time meticulously looking at the whole city and talking to the community. I would hate to see at the very end of the process, after the communities had time to weigh in, that a lot of density gets added on because RENA numbers weren't met. So
Yeah,
did these maps reflect having enough RENA?
they do. And for the benefit of this being recorded, RENA is Regional Housing Needs Allocation, and it's a number that the state says thou shall plan for X amount of units. And ours is a little over 5,000. And what that means is you have to plan. I want to emphasize that you have to plan where the units can go. It's not necessarily going to mean that all those units have to be built or are going to be built. And I think that's a big distinction. You have to plan for them so that if for some reason there was a one that they could happen, that the zoning and regulations could allow them to happen. But there is no necessarily like guarantee that they're all going to be built all at one time to the maximum allowed. You just have to plan for it. That's what HCD wants to see. You plan for it. That's why we have the ranges of density, because when you look at that high number of that density range, that checks that box, right? But and not, thinking outside of the whole state density bonus law, there might be someone that doesn't hit that top of that box, right? They don't want to get into an affordability covenant. They don't want to have to deal with the oversight of a third party. They just want to have a 7-unit, apartment complex that is just regular, no frills, no thrills. They could do 20, but they chose not to. So it really is at the discretion of the property owner and what they can and want to build based on that designation. But I do want to just underscore, you have to plan for it. It doesn't mean that all the maximum are going to be built. In fact, I don't think that's ever really happened, because it really is there's so much discretion involved with the individual landowners and property owners.
So over the 25 years, are they planning in this GPAC map for one round of regional housing needs assessment numbers, or 2 rounds or 3 rounds?
So the housing element is kind of on its own track. It has to be updated every 8 years, because populations grow, people move in, people move out. And so housing elements with that have to be updated every 8 years to reflect a potential new RENA number from the state. Now, those typically, you can't predict what it's going to be, but typically they're a marginal change either which way. It just depends on how those 8 years have progressed for the city and for other neighboring cities, and population growth and people leaving the state, people moving to the state. There's a lot of variables that dictate that number, that effectively are governed by our Southern California Association of Governments and Council of Governments that issue the numbers. So while that housing element chapter is within the general plan, the whole general plan, its entirety is updated to the 20-25 year increments. That housing element chapter, we pull it out and take a look at it every 8 years to make sure for the state that, how are you doing on those RETA numbers? Are you guys making progress? ADUs are going to be a big win for us in that way. It's like a bonus unit on every single family dwelling, if you think about it. So that in itself, could help us meet it. And they go, hey, you know what? Cool. we're fine with the arena numbers for the next 8-year cycle. We're not going to change it, or we're only going to change it marginally. I think the county has already met nearly 2/3 of the arena numbers, and they're within the 3rd or 4th year of their housing cycle. So they're almost done. So
when you say met, the county has met, do you mean they have just planned for it, or
no,
they?
meaning like they have
Okay.
actually either constructed or have final permit sign off on a new unit. So that
Okay.
arena number is checked off the list.
Great.
Yeah. So, and that's the unincorporated county. So that's
Mhm.
everything outside of our 10 cities in the county. So even the
Mhm.
county has their own RETA number.
Mhm.
The cities have their own individual numbers, and of course those are a little higher because we are the urbanized centers. And the county, this is an interesting fact, the unincorporated county, so everything outside of city limits of the 10 cities we have in the city, you can only build on 10% of unincorporated land. The remaining 90% are protected by SOAR, greenbelts, or the Los Padres National Forest. So they are extremely limited to an available land inventory to even meet their RENA. So their RENA number is very small to reflect the fact that they only have a very small urban quote unquote area that they can build because of those limitations.
So bottom line on Reina, and then we need to move on. It looks like we're meeting Reina, and there's not going to be a need to start stuffing more housing. This
We're
map
in a
meets it.
we're in a really good forward momentum with our housing. We're doing a recount of the past 3 years, just to make sure we really hit every unit that was constructed, just to demonstrate within our annual progress reports to HCD. That's another element of the housing element. Every year we have to do what's called an annual progress report, also called an APR. It's due by April 1st or end of April. So typically that's presented to council in March, where we go, hey, out of our housing element, all these great programs we have not only ADUs, we have transitional housing, we have homeless shelters, we have all these things that touch housing. This is how we're doing it, and this is what's happening, so that they can have real-time updates how we're meeting that 8-year vision of that housing element. And then they can tell us like, hey, you might want to focus on this, or you might want to do this a little bit differently, or how about progress on that program that you have. They really hold jurisdictions accountable because, I mean, it's a statewide emergency, right? It's the housing crisis. And so it's not just Ventura, unfortunately, where a lot of cities are feeling this crunch.
Okay, thank you, Maruja.
Yeah.
All right. Any last questions? Honestly, I think we probably want to wrap this up so the recording's not going to be too long. And it'd be great if we can get the presentation. We'll post that along with the recording.
Sure.
Maruja, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make it into a PDF real quick and I'll send it to you shortly. And
Sounds
again, I dropped my, oh, Cassie, yes.
I just wanted to say, even if I had not, I think, I mean, I may be biased, but even if I did not have any previous knowledge of who you were as a person, this meeting has been lovely. It's clear
Oh,
that
thank
you know our city, you've been in our city, you're a member of this community, and you want to see the general plan reflect our community values just like we do. And I'm very pleased that you're in the position that you're in. And even having read on your background, the places that you've been prior to this level that you've achieved, you've really worked your way up and you've put in a lot of hours, and we are lucky to have you in the city of Ventura and the position that you are. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I love my city. I love it. And I'm really happy to be back. You know, I've had, as Cassie mentioned, strong roots here. My grandparents owned the Thompson Antique Market right by the Habit downtown. And my dad had his stained glass shop here. Even though we lived in Santa Paula, it took us a long time to actually find a home here. But I was always in Ventura as a little. And it's wonderful to be able to bring a profession that I love and truly enjoy into my community that I also love and truly enjoy.
Fantastic.
So thank you for that.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. And we will be trying to get the word out to the community.
Awesome. Thank you,
Next
Lisa. And
few
by the way,
days
your
here.
headshot is awesome. I love your headshot. It's on point.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
super nice. I dig it. I love
Thanks.
the color combo.
Harper
well,
Harper
yeah.
Point. You guys
Oh,
probably.
yeah, that's who
yeah.
did Supervisor Lavera's headshot. So
Yeah.
good to know.
All
Well, thank you
right.
so much again for taking the time on such a busy night. I really appreciate all of you and your commitment to our city. Again, I dropped my info in the chat. Reach out anytime about anything. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon. And Cassie, I'll hit you up too for some coffee. All right.
Sounds great. Thanks
Take
again.
care. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.